Okay. Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We got an OG. I remember talking to you, Douglas, just way back in the day, like way
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah, it was we realized we were talking to X Party in the comments. Some of you guys might have seen that a few days ago. There's a bunch of stuff going on with POLITIFI, with prediction markets, with you know
Yeah.
the attention that's getting thrown on the elections here in the States. And it turns out Douglas is that guy doing that stuff. And so so here he is, and we're going to be able to get to talk about that. And of course, CXC.world. We've been hearing snippets about that for a really, really long time. So getting an update about that's probably going to happen too. But hey, Douglas, hi, how you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's been too long, and it's really refreshing to talk to you and to just dive my head back into the wax space. And Juan, it's great to meet you formally, face to face. And I love Nifty Blocks. I think it's the most beautiful and functional Nifty NFT marketplace. So thank you for all that you do for the communities and creators here.
Cool. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. And very nice having you here. Very, very nice. And I think that you have one very interesting project going on Wax right now. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, like I'm happy to dive right in.
Yeah, but maybe before we get into your current project, for those who don't know you, what's your background? How did you get started with Wax?
Sure. So I want to start by talking more about my vision and why I kind of do what I do.
Okay.
So I've been obsessed with this idea of time ever since I was maybe a kid, and not just time, but time in relation to currency. And I've just had this sort of vague idea, like maybe I was born with it, that, okay, we need to adjust the financial system to be related to time, and that way we can create some form of abundance. So over the last 10 years, I've been designing systems which I believe can create abundance that is efficient and sustainable. So this journey into, I guess, wax, it originally started with CXC, which was my original vision of how this sort of thing would work. And I had a vision when I was 16 years old, or maybe even younger, but it was like the first time I smoked weed. And I was like connected to the universe for the first time. And like, I saw these like boxes of information like traveling on these strings all around the world. And like the box had like a little tag. And I see this now as a metaphor for NFTs. And I was like, my brain was trying to process that future information of like, there's something with NFTs. There's something that we can do with metadata to attach information and to provide value. So what is this tag on this information? Well, the tag is like a list of what you can do with the information. And when I first designed the system, it was like, okay, well, what do people want to do with each other's work, and how can we facilitate these transfers of value? So I thought about permissions and restrictions on jurisdictions and time. So the original version of CXC, which I sort of designed in 2014, had to do with defining jurisdictions, defining permissions, and creating kind of like modular, more of a legal contract where you can define like what is A, and A is this blank in the form, and then A is referenced to another piece of something, and then that becomes like a digitized contract. And then when you combine that with both a time limit as well as jurisdiction limits, it created what I thought would be like a sort of quasi-legal system which could run on blockchain. But I digress. Go ahead, Juan.
No. Go ahead. It's sorry I interrupted you there.
Well, I tend to rant, so feel free to interrupt me.
No, but it's good. I'm trying to follow up so that I don't miss anything of this, because I think it's a very complex and abstract concept that you're explaining here.
Yeah, it really is. So after that sort of idea, which I didn't actually build that, I was like, okay, well, what's the simplest version of this system that we can do? And I realized that the simplest version was really just a side of that system I designed, which was turned into the upvoting system. So what I'm excited to talk about today is CXC. We're finally going to have on-chain upvotes, which you can do with the Blux token. And this is something we've been talking about for a long time. I built the first version actually like in 2021. I demoed it, but I didn't actually launch it. But now we've changed it to be fully on smart contract because the first version wasn't. So now instead of sort of creating licensing, we're doing the same thing with charts. What are charts and why are they important? Like music charts, pretty much like a Billboard Top 100 chart, but then making that localized. So I came to Wax because I wanted to create this localized charting for music. I wanted to create the next phase for CXC, and CXC.world was originally launched on Steemit. We had like a posting feature, but now we want to fully go on Wax and fully have this upvoting and the localized chart system, which we're going to start to roll out on the 9th of next month. And then just to wrap up, after that, like I took the best things from CXC and I weaved it into the next project, Tetra, which isn't released. There's some information about it, but it's really like the more wider use case of how can we create attention? How can we trust each other and offer income for insight about what's valuable to you so that we can discover what's valuable for ourselves and for our society. Then X Party, which I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy to talk about any of these type of things, but X Party was something I designed, or I came up with the idea last year, and I was like, okay, well, this is a great way to build momentum for Tetra. And I wasn't really sure if I was ever going to do it. It kind of got like pushed to the side. And then this year with all the election news and the POLITIFI tokens, I was like, why don't I make one that actually does something? You know, like why not actually make a POLITIFI token that people can vote with and see if people want to play around with it, see if it's something that people can get behind, and hopefully people have fun with it and it doesn't just turn into, you know, political bashing, and it can actually be a test of new technology and seeing how it works with society.
Okay, cool. And how has been the response on Wax to this X Party experiment?
Well, so I've been doing some marketing, and we've got, you know, I'm not exactly sure how many users, not a ton, but definitely like a couple dozen. We've got some liquidity. I was actually pretty happy with the results at first, but then again, I also have sort of low expectations. So maybe that's a problem. What I'd like to see more of is people voting. We've had maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 people vote. You can vote with multiple different, or like you can vote a bunch of times at once. So like, yeah, there's 170,000 votes, but that was, I think, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people that some of them voted like 100,000 times, you know?
So it's just like laying on the vote button. Not exactly a scientific tool, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
that's funny.
So, and then you have like, so we have the top votes, and like the idea with all these projects, whether it's Tetra or CXC or X Party, is we want to fulfill human needs, and we want to use that desire to get a message out as like the primary driver of the economy. So the theory with X Party is basically like, okay, if we can find 10 people maybe even 8 people, 4 people on each side, and they all want to get their message out, and we can create almost like this sort of battle, then it becomes this fun and interesting thing with tokenomics, because once you get into the liquidity pools and how we're inflating the token, it's really almost like a free-for-all with the economics of like, let me step back a second. So the way it works is you stake this XPX token, and XPX is pegged to wax. So the idea is that you are getting our token, but you can always sell it back and get at least most of the money from it back, because we have buy orders that are exactly match what we sell. So once we sell one, we put buy orders that are a resistance level of exactly the same amount of XPX. So it can never go like down to 0 as long as that mechanism holds in place. So you have this token XPX, you stake it, and then you get both Harris and Trump token. So then you make a decision about, okay, what do I do to express my opinion and to really to place my bet now that I have actually both of this token, one that I don't want and one that I theoretically do want and I theoretically do believe it. So if you want your token to be of higher value, basically you can just dump the other token, which is what's been happening, or you can just so you can dump that token, or you can hold on to it and wait for a better time, or you can stake it again. And then with the token that you actually like, the idea is you want to build the value of it. So you can do that by burning, by getting your candidate like showing up, but also you can do it just by holding it. So anything that you can, or staking it again, right? So you're trying to build value for your candidate while taking down the value of the other candidate. And hopefully somewhere in that interaction, you're making more wax, like you're making income, because the APRs on the presidential tokens are a lot higher than what we're taking out in our market maker to stabilize the price of XPX.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm just staring at it, trying to sort of, I mean, I really like, we've seen some sort of, LP, games, but the whole idea, like, it's, cause they tend not to have, a ton of meaning. You maybe make up like a little cute story about it or whatever, but this is really tied to things that, in this country and frankly, globally, to some extent, people can have some opinions and feelings about. So it's sort of, it's I would imagine it deepens that experience or that gamification.
Yeah, and you popped up our lore. So we actually have some really cool like storyline behind it. So one thing about me is like, I'm always doing what's most exciting, and that becomes a problem because I have all these different projects and I have to circle back and try to catch up, and I'm juggling too many balls. But the fun thing about that is I'm constantly like experimenting. And one thing I really wanted to experiment here was to create like a whole story, but to do it in like the least words possible, if that makes sense. So USAX, we are a legally registered, we're a registered company in the US, X Party. And part of that is I'm not actually legally allowed to influence the elections because I went to try to be an actual party and I didn't finish all the paperwork. And part of the stipulation of me not finishing that paperwork is, okay, I'm not legally allowed to do anything that might influence the elections. So I took that and I thought, perfect, let's create a storyline that facilitates that. And that storyline is that you're a time traveler. You come back in time because something got screwed up in the future in your timeline, and you think it's related to the elections. So somebody gives you this technology on a USB, and it's a technology for meme coins, and they send you back into the past, and then you have to like figure out, okay, what do I do? I'm launching this system. How do I get people to use it? Is it going to actually work? And then you end up on the wrong timeline. You end up on a timeline where like Triple Extension is like this rapper and he's like become a Christ-like figure. He was murdered, but like in this alternate timeline, he's like the leader of the spiritual community. And then everybody has added an X to their name. So that's why it's Trump X and Harris X. And the idea is like a parallel reality, but it's similar to our reality. So hopefully like the messages and whatever you do will have some influence on real life where we're living today.
Okay, cool. And this is something that you created specifically for the election. It's or is it something generic that you can then reuse easily to create other types of polls or prediction markets?
I mean, maybe not prediction markets, but this can be used to compare any two things that have a geographic bounds. So on the tech side of things, I used a starter that was leaflet, and then it has it's really interesting build because it uses Google Sheets as the database. And I didn't start with this, like I kind of built on top of it and made it my own and made it work with blockchain. But anything I can put, like any sort of list of locations, any list of locations I can put in here, and I can have it zoom to these different places and have some sort of a vote about that. So I could very easily like clear the data and make it all nations all over the world, and then you're voting for option A or option B. But the real answer to your question is I wouldn't actually do that, because I believe that what I built for CXC and what I have designed for Tetra is better. That being said, sometimes I design things that are too complex, and I understand the value of having something really, really simple like this. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity to take that sort of shell and then try it with other different things. And after the elections, that's our plan, is like with XPX, my goal is to just keep releasing coins that are basically free. Like we don't have a sale. We don't have any project tokens. We release it all to liquidity pools, and then try to figure out like what people want, and then give them this fun game where they stake with very little risk, and then they're getting a high reward. But then that high reward only comes if there's enough of the community that are actually willing to hold the coin instead of just selling it, right? So it's going to be interesting to find out, like, I don't want to do politics forever with X party. Like, what else could we do? Like, what else could we be voting on and have sort of fun competitions about?
So does it not kind of become analogous to a predictions market? At scale, right? Obviously, like if 10 people are playing the game, probably not so much, right? But a million people playing the game, especially if it's sort of a dichotomy, it's sort of a vote with your feet kind of, or crypto, right? Underneath that whole thing, if one is that much more valuable than the other, you've effectively set up a prediction market that has a cost to it.
Yeah, I think it's like the most complicated prediction market.
It's definitely not the simple version, but
it's cool because like I was thinking while you were saying that, like all the different liquidity pools, you can stake into them. One of them is Nifty. That's another sort of prediction market, because XPX will remain relatively stable with Wax, but then you have to choose what liquidity pool you want to stake into, because they all have like the same rewards, pretty like the same amount of rewards that will vary depending on how many people are in the pool. But you're showing your allegiance for your project is like an extra addition to that prediction. You're predicting which project's tokens you think will perform, while you're also predicting who you think will win.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of fun. All right, so what's can you walk us through sort of how to, like, if somebody wants to mess around with this, what would the first step be?
Sure. So I'll tell you, like, basically, I want you to not invest and get a lot out, right? If you want to invest and probably lose money, just buy the political tokens. And the reason I say that is because we're inflating those. We put 90% of the total supply into liquidity pools. So I designed this game. Maybe I was being cheap, but I designed it thinking I want people to be able to play without like having a lot of investment, and then figure out another way that the project can make money. And I haven't talked about that, but I can explain that in a second. How you get in is go to alcor.com or alcor.exchange, go to the farm page and find an XPX pool. Just type in XPX and there will be about like 12 different pools that you can get into. The safest pool, but it also has the lowest reward, is XPX versus Wax. We also have an XPX and liquid stake Wax. Unfortunately, I just have the Alcor version because I launched it right before Mike D launched his LS Wax. So unfortunately, I missed that, but I'm hoping to have a pool for LS Wax soon. So you stake your tokens and then you'll get both tokens back. So you'll immediately start to get a pretty good amount of Harris X and Trump X. Once you have those tokens, you do what I was talking about earlier. You decide what you want to do with them. And the most logical thing to do is to just sell the token that you don't like, just dump it on the other side. Then whoever is staking that liquidity is, they're losing money. That's part of the game. So you're dumping the liquidity of the side that you don't want, and then take the coin that you do like, and maybe put a little bit in that liquidity pool of Wax versus the candidate you like. And then please actually go to xparty.win and actually put in your vote, actually share your opinion. The prompt right now is like, what policies do you like from the candidate? So please share what policies that you like. And if you have the vote if you have the highest amount of tokens voted, then your message gets displayed at the top of the site, and it'll stay there for as long as you are the top voter. But you got to watch out, because anybody can come in and anybody can vote more tokens and get their message to the top of the site for the world to see as well.
Savage.
Cool. Yeah.
That's fun. So yeah, as has been mentioned on this show, I'm a recovering political junkie podcaster. So I will definitely not be taking part in this for my own mental health, but I think everyone else should. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh man. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It's interesting. I think that this kind of predictions polls have been very active on other chains right now, and it's the first time I see something like this on Wax. So it's really interesting.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Sort of what happens when it sort of operates at any kind of scale. Just because it should. Again, it was only like 70 plus days, whatever it is now. But there's definitely going to be a lot of energy and attention focused on this over the next little while. So it could do very well, or at least get big. I don't know what well means. So as far as like you making some kind of income from this, what's the model for that?
Sure. So first of all, like I want to say, like, I'm still learning, and there's ways that I could improve, but the first way that we made money is we had like just a token sale. We sold 10% of the supply on the open market. Not a lot of that actually sold, because I immediately opened the pools too soon, and the pools started inflating the other 90%. And then of course there's not a reason to buy. So that was one thing I could have done better. What I should have done is I should have had the token sale and then released only the rewards for staking in the tokens and Wax to sort of build up the liquidity in those pools. and then start the other pools. Also, instead of having like linear rewards over a year, I should have done like 1 month of rewards and then have higher rewards the next month, which compensates for the predictably lower amount in the pool as people want to take their profits.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I should have done. But the real way that we make money is because this coin is stable to wax, more or less. It's 68% of the orders that come in, 68% of the wax that comes in goes into the 0.98 sell order. So buy order. So we're selling at 1 and we're buying with the Fibonacci ratio at 2% below. So because of that stability, we're basically creating more liquidity for bots, but we're not just doing it by adding wax to the pool. We're kind of saying, okay, well, here's some wax liquidity, but we're going to charge you an extra percent, an extra couple percent for that. So because we've created liquidity pools with the top 12 projects in wax, based on their fluctuation, like for example, TLM the other day, like shot up, I don't know, 20% or something. And when that happened, it became lucrative for the bots to buy the TLM out of our pools. So in order to do that, they had to buy XPX. And whenever that goes out of the range of the pool, it'll buy it off the market. We make money because for every XPX that we sell, we take 6.6%, which is the difference in the total market orders on the buy side and the sell side. So another thing I could have done better is I could have adjusted that value, because I kind of just arbitrarily picked that value. And as I've done a little bit more like diving in, you don't need like 93.4% to stabilize the market. Like I could have taken a higher percentage, but this way it's better. It's more secure for the people. And although I'm taking less of a profit, I really think that it's something that can be really long-term stability. And the more kind of volatility that we see within the market, the better that XPX does, because it's just a sort of premium LP service in the eyes of arbitrage bots.
That's interesting. It's not very simple how to the way you design that, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Indeed. So
what is your background?
Yeah.
What in work and life?
Yeah, exactly. Because to design something like that, I wonder what is your background, or why do you have that knowledge?
Yeah, man. So I'm just always like, I've always been a tinkerer. I've been the kid that was there with the hammer breaking apart the radio and with the screwdriver taking it all apart. When I was 16 years old, I got into web design. And I built a social networking site similar to MySpace from scratch. And my teachers at the time were like, just didn't understand. Like they like just like literally didn't believe that I did it. And like from that time on, I've just been like really seeing things. Like I see something and I get excited about it and I just want to attack it. But again, my problem is impatience, and that's why I launched the pools too early and these things, because I want to do everything at one time, which is a problem. But yeah, so my background is I started with that website. I built it with PHP, MySQL. I took a database of every high school in the US. It was called myhs.us. Which I literally emailed the government, and they're just like, oh, here, it's public data. Here's the database of all the high schools. And then I created a dynamic page for each high school where you would have the different users, and the users, when they would log on, there'd be like, it was a drop down list at that point. So you had to like drop down and like search and find your high school from this list. But once you found it, then you were put into this sort of private clubhouse of your high school. And then it had like you could have pictures. There was actually, it's funny because Mark Zuckerberg had this thing. It was like, I think it was like Hot or Not or something, like this weird rating system. And like my original site, we had like, it was a 5-star rating system, and you could rate like how cool somebody is, like how chill they are, like how smart they are. But so it was fun. It was a juvenile thing that I built. And so I was into web design then. When I was 18, I built, I think it was like the first Ajax based forum. So it was like a forum site that you didn't have to reload. It was just like a single page. And then from there, I was really running WordPress sites for a long time. I founded Web Development Club at my college. Then I was into Drupal. After that, I got into WordPress. I got more into music. Then I was working as a waiter for like 5 or 6 years through college. And then I started traveling, and right sort of in the beginning of my travels, I ended up staying in DC for a month with my buddy. And my buddy's like roommates' friends were all blockchain developers. So I'm telling them this idea that I've had for this app, which was cxc.world. That's been my dream for years. And they're like, wow, like this would work. They're like, oh, somebody already did it, because I'm explaining the upvote system and how you make money. And they're like, oh, there's something that's already like that. It's called Steemit. So that's how I heard about Steemit. That's how I got involved in blockchain. Like I was inspired by those guys. And then I started traveling. I was with my Peruvian partner at the time. And she, I was just like in this beautiful part of life where I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to follow my dream. Like, I'm going to do it. Like this cxc.world's been my dream for so long. Like I'm going to do it. So I did it and I built it. And that's the backstory of how we got to the beginning of CXC.
Cool. And now you're working on a new version of all of these.
Yes. So Tetra is perhaps the most ambitious of these projects. Again, I understand that things should be simple, and I want to make things as simple as possible. And the easiest way to describe it is income for insight. And you provide insight with your upvotes starting in your local area. We, as citizens, decide together what is valuable, and then that goes on to represent our local area. If we start at the county level, you would have a list of the top pieces of music, or, I haven't really talked about this a lot, but it's actually going to start to curate the web. So you could have the top Instagram pages that are from your specific county, or let's say your state in the US. Now, obviously this is a social competition. We are social creatures. We're looking for status in others. We're trying to determine and to convey who we are. And we're also looking to share our value with the world. So with Tetra, it's similar to CXC, but the idea is it's local first, right? We want to focus just on put up blinders, not be distracted by what's happening in Russia, because that's not benefiting our community, right? We want to focus on what's going on in our community and what do we want to manifest? What do we want to raise awareness about? And it's my belief that if this is the cornerstone of our value system, not just chasing profit to pay interest on a debt, then we'll have just this amazing society develop. Not only that, it's not going to be homogenous, right? It's not going to be just the same thing everywhere, because you have this energy that starts to slowly build in these locations, almost like a culture, almost, or like we'll say a trend, right? So you have this trend that bubbles in this specific area, and maybe it'll go to all of Brazil or all of Colombia, and it'll sort of buzz there for a while. And then as other people start to maybe poke around and look what's going on in Colombia, because everything's public, then these locally organically grown trends are what is transported around the world, instead of what these sort of few influencers or few brokers of information say is the whatever narrative or whatever they think is what you want to see or what you'll click on, or ultimately what'll make them profits.
So I can only, well, I can see a few challenges for sure. I mean, like, again, the one thing I have known from you is your ideas go right to the end, right, in a way that is inspiring. You know, and I the universes that are in your head, I would gladly step into. The first main issue that I see with that stuff is the monkeys. You know, like, how do you get at any kind of usable scale, even in a single county? Because I've done some county political work, and like, most people are utterly disconnected. They have absolutely no idea. There's no information flow unless I literally make it, right? Like, the county commissioners have absolutely no vested interest to let the majority of people know what they're doing, and so they don't, right? So like, how does that, like, how do you get one county to scale so that this system is working meaningfully?
That's a really good question. You know, I'm going to step away from theory for a second and go to like real life. I've been meeting with a guy. His name's Jorge. I invited him to watch. If you're watching, hello, Jorge. And he's working with CXC. He's a musician as well, and he's excited about music tokenization. And he has connections with this town. It's called Ceja. It's in the same state that I'm in, Antioquia, and it's like a really sort of musical town. So we've been sort of,
hey, for the record, as a musician, that sentence is cool. The whole idea you have a town that's a really good music town. I'm living in the wrong country. Go on.
Yeah, no, come to Colombia. It's great.
I'm in. Sign me up.
San Marcos too is a great music town. Like, you can just go to open mics all the time. It's beautiful.
That's awesome.
So anyway, we've been sort of developing the strategy about like approaching the government and saying like, okay, we want to do music tokenization, which is another side of CXC. And we have been thinking about like, you know, what's that sort of playbook to get the city involved, because we also realized like, hey, it's going to take an event is one thing that we're talking about, like having a concert, or just like the city participation. Another thing that we were thinking about is like going to the local university there and teaching people like, okay, here's how you tokenize your music, right? So the same idea with how to use this system, like those would be three of the playbooks. Would be number one, go to the government, say, hey, we want you to officially support this. Number two, just start to educate people. Number three, to have an event. Now, what I think, because I'm the type of dude, like I'm convinced I can solve everything in my head, which is like a problem, but it's that belief in gusto that drives me forward. And I believe that we can create a referral system where we're not only creating financial incentives, but we're giving you status, right? So what I want to create is a network of people who represent their area. Then it doesn't become a question of how do I get adoption in a county? It's then, okay, I want to find 100 ambassadors, and maybe one of those ambassadors out of 100 will be able to get enough traction in their county, you know, through whatever means, that we can actually have like a good test. If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think, you know, so I've done a lot of education around here about blockchain voting. And of course, most people, when you talk about blockchain voting, their eyes literally glass over. But it's you know, it's like the obvious solution for, you know, dealing with the trust issues that people have with voting here in the States, right? It's just, you know, Bitcoin works. Even the governments can't hack it, right? Like, if you do this stuff on blockchain, it all can start to work out. And the only real way that I could find to gain some traction on that, and other people are actually starting to think about this and do this as well, is do it like even at the city level, like the town, right? I live in this relatively little place called Newport Richey, And if you just prove a test case, right? If that's like at anything like this, you can design a 60 million piece rocket, but if your MVP doesn't work, you've basically wasted your time, right? So I'm glad that you're like talking to a town and sort of looking at what kind of impact this could have. Have you guys thought about any particular issue set that you might be able to do it? So like if you go and talk to a town, that's one thing. If you go and talk to a town and help them solve a problem, that might be like a way to really have it gain some traction.
Wow, that's a really good question. I will say, like, most of the work in thinking about this was done towards CXC, and I think that with Tetra there would be a real ability to solve real world issues. So I think I haven't gone down that train of thought because I've been focused on music in terms of the initial launch. But looking into Tetra, really, one of my biggest inspiration is with food and local producers of food. I've traveled South America for years, and one of my favorite things is like I shop in the mercados. I don't want to go to the supermarket. Now I still do, but I'd rather go to the mercado and buy the stuff from a farmer. And of course, yeah, he's probably using pesticides and stuff like that as well. But it's a little bit better for me than going to the supermarket and sort of feeding that system that separates the value from the people who are creating the products.
Yep.
So I think that the key is a pain point, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't really feel a pain point everywhere with food, but in some places they do. And in Medellin, hunger is a big thing. Like there's people who are hungry and there's people who are super rich. And I have a friend who he used to run one of these, a big charity that gave food to like tens of thousands of people. And that's awesome. But what if we can, in addition to that, create like a network where people can just sell and buy the food that they have? So I feel like I'm kind of rambling and brainstorming, and maybe this isn't the right.
Welcome to the show. This is exactly what we do. I mean, I've very often found your ideas are towards the grand end of the scale, right? But if we can get down to it, I'm really glad that you're thinking about it in these terms, right? If you can get down to a pain point and prove one node in that network can function, then at least it's got a chance, right? And you're still dealing with, whether it's DAOs or democracies, the biggest problem is the intelligent monkeys are busy doing other shit, right? They should be thinking about this and self-determination, but the fucking Kardashians are doing something that day, right? So like it's difficult to get people engaging. So the going towards that food element, right? You're going to find people that have a lot of money maybe that might want to support that because it might end up being a more efficient way to give, right? And then all the people that are producing that food, like basically like the superstore, the supermarket might be mad and good, like fuck those guys, right? So if you can then start to have people do that, and it seems like it's like an idea sort of thing as well, right? Like that whole insight thing. So maybe people are then incentivized to start giving away seeds and showing people how to have little micro gardens or something like that, right? Like how do you improve the entire network so that there's more food production and better distribution of that food?
Yeah, like what do you think? What do you think would be a good one while we're brainstorming?
I mean, I think you nailed it, right? Especially like in the area that you're around, right? Just start thinking about the system that you're building. What are the ways that non-nerds like us, right, like normal people, could interact with it to just get one little tiny piece of that done, right? Create one connection between two people that are on two different sides of an equation, right? Have food, need food, or like want to make food and know how to make food and have seeds or something, right? Yeah, that's kind of probably where I would focus, because I think you've already done the thinking on like a good pain point to have. And again, like if you do that in a town with and convince, you know, the people that are running that town that this might be a way to do that, or like go talk to, I'm sure they've got organizations that are around that are doing that. I mean, it's just you can, you know, try and make the case for it, but I think it'll also then constrain your thinking to help you build the thing that's going to be useful, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, cool beans. World's problem solved. Nailed it.
Well, yeah, it's like we can only get closer and closer to the answer, you know. It's like,
if you keep trying, this is true.
And we have to be willing to pivot, you know, and to like you said, to find that pain point, solve that pain point, take what you learn, and then take that further. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans, and it's not a solution of technology that makes us better humans and have better lives. It's people.
Right.
And when technology can bring us together is where I see the value. Is what's the minimum that we can do to create human connection, and just try to design the technology so it doesn't become that replacement, right?
Yeah.
So for example, on social media and stuff, we have, there's so many different ways to look at it. One side is like, it's us expressing ourselves and connecting and everything. But at the same time, we've created this almost of a gatekeeper of society. And what else could that look like? What other values could we be providing to each other other than, you know, short form video and pictures? So I'm not sure what the effect's going to be, but I invite anyone watching to poke around our repo. We have the Tetra GitHub. We have the smart contracts for UPS for CXC, which will be running Blux upvoting, but it is the localized curation system that I'm talking about, because I don't have all the answers. This isn't the one end all be all. But if we can learn from each other's parts and start to put together these systems, you know, my code is open source. You can build something better if you want. But the end of the day, let's bring people together. Let's keep organizing so that Douglas isn't just this crazy guy shooting off in a direction by himself. Like, I want help. I need help. I love everyone. I love you guys. I love everyone who wants to bring people together. And, you know, maybe this contribution is valuable in some way that I don't see yet.
So while you were talking about all this stuff, because I obviously am maybe even a little bit over cynical, but I'm pretty cynical about the getting people to apply energy to their own self-interest at scale, right? Because it's too easy to be distracted. I mean, it's too easy for me to be distracted, and I'm thinking about this shit all the time, right? So like, it's not not a dig. Then I started thinking about like the amount of noise that's about to be on the internet with AI. We're going to need AIs between us and basically everything just to discern what actually has meaning, like to you know, pull signal from the noise in a way that is meaningful for you. And I think that is going to come faster than all of us can really imagine. And once that's done, while you were talking about all that stuff, like it's really just the sort of the energy and focus that's required to apply oneself to something like that. But then, like, if I've got an AI, it knows what I want, probably more than I do, right? It's one thing is these, you know, large language models, you feed them enough data, it's you know, and I'm in that conversation that you would have with your own AI or whatever, it's gonna know, you know, your feelings about this stuff and be able to bring stuff to you and be able to apply energy in your stead to systems like yours, right? And so if everybody had one of these you know, agents, then maybe that's a situation where, you know, that it's not a network for people, it's a network for all of their AIs that are doing functional things together in very meaningful ways. Right? So you solved the sort of the lack of, you know, the ability for direct democracy to really work because people aren't paying enough attention, right? But like in communication with their AIs, they effectively could be, right? And then maybe, and again, like I know I'm like taking the drugs right now, which is something that I like to do. Have you seen this shirt? But like that's part of what gives me hope for some of this stuff, right? So you build a network where the kind of the weakest link in that chain is going to be human participation, and humans might be in the very near future able to participate intellectually at scale in ways that we've never seen before, right?
Yeah.
All
Well,
right, good talk.
I'm sorry. That was an awkward time to say yeah. Like I didn't mean to cut you off. If
No, I was done. You nailed it.
Yeah. So okay, let's think about AI in the current model versus like what I'm proposing.
Mhm.
I think that the key is human will. Human will. What do we will versus what we actually do?
Yep.
Right. So when we will something, we decide this is what I want more of in my life. Now, what actually happens is quite different. And what I'm thinking about when you're talking about AI content, not just from the side of receiving, like having the AI curate the content for you, but also the generation of content and
Mhm.
the incentives for that content generation. Recently on Instagram, I've been seeing like a lot of these accounts which are created. I don't know if they're created by bots, but all the videos are basically ripped off of Reddit, and then they have like a caption, and the account will be like, this is the best drone crashes is one. Like, you found the page with only drone crashes, right? So yeah, I love watching drone crashes. It's a funny, interesting thing to watch. I don't willingly want more of that in my life. You know what I mean? But I'll
Right.
still end up spending 20 minutes watching every video on this page, seeing every
I was
single
honestly, don't tell my partner Juan this, but that's why I didn't sleep last night. I went down so many freaking rabbit holes, and I turned around like, oh my god, it's like 3:00 in the morning. What the fuck am I doing? It was ridiculous. I missed a meeting this morning. Like, things are fucked up. So yes, go on.
Yeah. So anyway, so what's the motive there? The motive is to drive these stats, and the final output of the motive, or the getting convoluted here, but the account that creates drone videos is created with the motive to get a lot of viewers, and then that will somehow translate into money for them, whether they delete all the videos, change the username, and sell the account, or do something like that.
Yeah.
Human will. What do humans actually want, and how can we make that what's driving the force within the system?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is exactly what I was talking about. So, the having that, in postulating a different kind of world or whatever. I do think everybody's going to have a personalized AI inside 3 years. To just, I mean, because intelligence cost is going to go down to next to zero. And there'd just be no reason not to, right? So, like, if that was the case, and again, like, we don't know really, but if that was the case, what you want becomes the entire point. Like, the thing that I want everyone to get really, really good at is asking what they actually want. Because if you can do that, you're going to be able to tell an AI to build literally anything, whether it's digital and soon with 3D printers, anything else, right? Like that, the capacity to exercise our will is going to kind of be the last thing that's left. Understanding what we want, and sort of realizing that at scale could be sort of the next level of where we're at. So to your point, and I think that's a really good example, right? If I'm sort of not in my executive function mind, as I should have been last night at 2:00 in the morning, I might just be like scrolling through videos and sort of like not really processing, do I actually want to watch the next video, or do I want to go to fuck to sleep? Right? Like, because having that kind of set up, right? So if my AI understands my will enough, it could very easily start to subtly, sort of fix the algorithm so that I'm seeing more stuff about, work theory or something like that, right? Like, it's just there's that possibility that it could be like affecting my algorithm based on what I'm sort of, seeing in any of my social medias. to be leaning me towards what it sort of realistically thinks might be in my executive function. Or it can just stop and say, hey, Corey, is this actually what you want to be doing? I'm like, no. Right? Like, who knows, right? But that's, it's I think there's going to be that potential for interrupt so that we have more opportunity to sit in our executive function mind as opposed to your, doom scrolling fucking, or even just like, dude, I ended up watching fucking cat videos last night. Like it was like, I was definitely like down the rabbit hole of stupid, right? Anyway,
yeah, we've been there. I've definitely been there. Like, I think you're optimistic that the AI would be like, hey, Corey, I think you should go to bed. Because in my mind, it's like there's just these metrics, and it's the metrics that are always going to be pushed towards, right? And you got to really understand, we as a society have to understand, like, what are these systems pushing towards, and not assume that it's evil, right? So I watched Zeitgeist last night. If you've ever seen Zeitgeist, it's like, I love it, but my biggest criticism of it is it's really negative. Like, it's like, oh, there's these people in power pulling the strings, and there's this financial system that's all fake and it's built on debt, which I think is true. But I also see the good side of it. And I see that because of interest, we have this competition to create value. And because everybody's having this competition to create value fast, that's how we have skyscrapers. That's how we have all these amazing things in our society. And it's really served us to create this physical world all around us. But because we're chasing these very specific metrics, we're not human anymore, right? We're not sitting around a fire drinking ayahuasca, channeling the will of the universe to experience and to understand why we're here and what is the human experience, and to unlock that. So what I want to do with back to the, or go ahead, Juan.
No, continue.
So back to the free will. Tetra and CXC is completely based on starting with yourself and starting with belief in yourself and your work, because you have to invest in that time, that energy, to put yourself on the map. And then you can also, if you want, you can kind of buy promotion. You get a certain amount of promotion today, but you can buy promotion. And if we all are willing to share ourselves with our local environment, transparency leads to vulnerability. Vulnerability leads to community. If we can share ourselves and share what we're doing, then we can declare what is our will, what are we willing to see, what are we willing to support in our environment, what are we willing to share, right? Because that's another thing that we sort of forget in our society, is like, we forget how valuable it is to talk to another person. Like, having me on here on this show to talk is so valuable to me. Like, and I'm helping provide some value to you as well. And that's a beautiful thing. But if we don't realize that we can put up that sign and say, like, hey, I'm valuable in this weird and quirky way, then we're still playing the game with the objectives of profit, instead of figuring out, like, okay, well, what's the game that develops where I'm just showing who I am, and then other people can decide what they want, and then we shape a collective will of what we want to see in our specific state or in our specific community. And that can be music, that can be dancing, that can be a new tool that somebody built, that can be an event, an idea, it can be a link to a web page, it can be all these sort of different categories. But it's not a profit motive anymore. It's a discovery motive of showing who I am, showing what I have to offer, and then finding people who come in and interact with that. And then, we can get into the financial system, but I'll sort of pass it back to you for a second. And yeah.
Well, what I think there, I think you are almost right with everything. But to some extent, you cannot remove the profit from the equation, because your profit might not be financial. You are still profiting from what you are doing, and in the end, that's how society works. You interact with other beings, and you will always get profit.
Some
What
kind of
happens
value,
is that
right?
the most valuable profit is not money, is not financial. So yeah, I think that's the only thing that I would like to balance there.
Well, and I
Because
think
I
I
fully
think it's
agree
a
with you.
really
And I think that the profit or the value that we should want to extract is non-economic value. Because
Yeah.
the economic value, to some extent, is like playing tappers, right? You're playing to be on the top 100, on the top 10, on the top whatever. But yeah, that's not really what matters. That's irrelevant.
It's interesting, right? It's like the
Yeah.
dopamine hit of seeing you go up on the leaderboard by one spot or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But I think like I was reading an article a few days ago about sort of extrapolating what the intelligence explosion could look like. And the math they were running is like 2027, 2028 is when it sort of hits this critical mass. Because there's this paper out with like an automated AI scientist that's fucking trippy as fuck, that actually works at a basic level, but it works. Peer reviewing itself and the whole 9 yards, right? So like they're sort of trying to extrapolate out to, basically the only things left that are required to scale almost infinitely is energy and compute, right? Like the number of chips and the amount of electricity that we can apply to it. And where they ultimately ended up is like, when you have that many things applying themselves to solving an economic system for each individual person or whatever, money basically becomes irrelevant, right? Like it becomes this thing that just sort of stops being the main node with which we sort of communicate value to and from each other. So Juan, this is exactly like, what's after that, right? Well, what's after that is actually, what's the actual value that
I think
we're after that we want to actually go for?
That it's completely wrong.
I mean, maybe.
Because
also, maybe not.
What really has value, it's already here and has always been here.
Well,
Douglas mentioned it at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was trying to say. The only thing that
has value here is time. Anything else, it's worthless. Time is the only thing that is valuable here. So if you think that you're rich because you have shitloads of money,
yeah, you've done it wrong.
But you don't have time to spend it, then you're doing it wrong. If you have shitloads of money and no time to spend it, my friend, wrong. That's not how it works.
Exactly
time
what you
is
said
what you need.
Right,
you need
value.
Enough money and a lot of time. That's the secret in life.
Yeah. I think it goes back to like, if you stop thinking in terms of the word profit and think in terms of the word value, then it goes back to that thing where you're having to decide what you actually want. Right. Yeah. You're having to go back into that executive function system that isn't just, I've become good at making money and now I only do that. Right. I think some people get into that space in exactly the way like it becomes as unconscious and as meaningless as scrolling through videos at 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. You're on this treadmill and you think that it's what you want to do, which is why so many people that become millionaires, hit middle age and fucking kill themselves. Because it just you get to that point where you've been doing this entire thing this entire time and you got like admittedly very, very good at it, and then you find out that none of it fucking matters at all. You have no family left, you have no friends left, everything is gone, right? And then you have this sort of crisis of meaning, when really if you just fucking listen to Juan the whole time, you would have been thinking about what do you actually value. Like you wake up in the morning and you can build infinitely, you can think infinitely. The only question left when you get up in the morning and you're drinking your coffee is what do you want, right? What's the actual thing that would make your life better? And it's not going to be a number on your computer, whether it's in Wuffy Tap or in your bank account. Like that's not how it works, right? As long as I have enough points to do whatever weird fucking thing I want to do on my Wuffy thing or whatever, right? Then that's enough points. Like I'm good. It doesn't really matter, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And like time, we were saying like, so time is the biggest resource, but it also needs to be applied as well. Like time can also be wasted. It can also like, I've been in this house for 2 months And I had a roommate, but he left. I've been by myself for most of the time. There's been times where I'm like, fuck, I have too much time. Because I'm not focused, right? So in addition to that, we need connection. And
Yes.
that connection over time is what I think is valuable. Instead of driving profit to pay off debt, the time-based currency is closer to a UBI, where you slowly increase in value over time. And then to balance that, you get connections. This is the key point. So time keeps accruing. This time token, raw keeps accruing, but you spend it when you want a connection. So what do I mean by that connection? Let's say I'm launching my first album and I want it to be as big as it can be, right? I can pay for that using the time token, which was kind of given to me over time for free. I could also buy more of that if I need to. And then I'm paying for that connection, and that becomes getting to the top of the list and having my message, sort of like you have that top message on xparty.win, but it's instead of that, it's saying, hey, check out Douglas's new album, White Puma's new album. And like, that's what the money is being spent on. The key point is that money is now coming out of the supply. And that's the problem with the financial system today, is that we're creating debt plus interest, and then the money supply is only created at the debt level, so that interest doesn't actually exist. So that's how we get $355 trillion or $35 trillion in debt, is because it literally just, there's not that much money supply because the debt is all added. So in my system, you can lend money, or you can like borrow money at 0% interest, because what that does is it just takes apart like your allowance, let's call it. You get like an allowance for being in the system and for providing your opinion about what you want to see in the area. That allowance can pay for your debts over time. So instead of lending a bunch of money and then having to pay more on top of that because of debt, you're able to say, okay, I'm going to borrow a month from myself in the future. I'm not going to get paid by the system for a month in order to create these connections right now. So I'm trading time, right? So I'm trading 30 days worth of possible connections with this currency that gives me exposure, which I'm saying is the connections. And I'm saying, okay, I want to borrow all my time right now. I'm going to make a gamble that says, I want to make all these connections. And then within the system, within the currency, if you go to know.tetra.earth, I explain how this whole financial system works. But if you get those connections, you can actually earn back more of that time token for a month, because all that takes to earn back the 1 month's worth of time tokens is 30 people giving you their 1 day's worth of time token, because they have to spend it, right? They have to spend this little time token, because, you know, I'm sorry that I'm not explaining things fully, but it also is time limited. You also have to spend it now, or you don't get another one the next day. So you sort of have to keep transacting this currency. You can borrow from yourself and bet on the now. And then if people do give you their time and give you their attention, then you're creating hopefully a long-term stability, valuable, and connections that are valuable, right? Because that's what it's all about, is not just money, not just time, but the connections that time is spent on, and making sure we have the money and the resources to create these experiences together, which we call life, in greater and greater ways.
Have you thought about running like 100-person trial? right? I mean, because it's again giant idea, difficult to test at scale because the average person probably won't really get it. I love thinking about shit like this, and I don't get it yet. I sort of see the edges of it, right? But how could we create an experience for a group of people that could go in and actually test the functionality of it?
I think that the challenge is that life already works like that. Life works exactly like that, because what you are doing when you create connections with other people, what you are doing is that you are getting extra time, because these people are helping you to achieve your goals in a faster way. So the stronger these connections are, the more benefits you get. And of course, they also get those benefits, because if they are not getting something from you, then it's worthless. So it's like it's like a network, and the more connections you have, the more valuable connections you have, the more the connections you want to have, then the better it is for you.
So is this a situation where, because I agree.
The thing is this, that to get these connections, you are already paying with time, because to cultivate a connection, to strengthen a connection, you have to do it by interacting with people, and you interact with people by spending time with them. So it's already basically how life works.
So if that's the case, and I think you're right about that, right? Could it not still be valuable to have a network where it's no longer in your local circle or local area, right? So now you sort of have this vested interest to be increasing those network connections, and providing value for, I love to have to spend it every day or whatever, like that. The whole thing was like, this is totally not going to work, until you said that. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I'm fucking wrong, right?
No. I think it's a very good idea, but the way I see it, it's more like feedback on how you are doing in life, in the sense that
interesting.
That you have to do that anyway. It's just a way of keeping a record, of keeping your keeping a balance of how you are doing in your day-to-day interactions and in your life.
I want to have tons and tons and tons and tons of those tokens, that I'm earning somehow, so that my AI can constantly be giving stuff to the people that I think deserve it at scale, more than my personal attention could ever handle.
I don't know if you saw a series on Netflix where it's somewhere in the future, and people, instead of instead of having money, they have time, and your time is stamped here. Yeah, so it's crazy. It's exactly that. If you are really rich,
not exactly.
Let's not make it exactly like that, because that was dark as fuck.
No, that's too much. But what I wanted to bring here
your is time runs out.
Is that time is really valuable.
Yes,
it's really valuable.
Yeah. So okay, Juan, that's why I believe this will work. Like what you said about that's how life works. Mm-hmm. Our systems need to replicate nature. End of sentence.
Yes.
And it's going to work if it does, right? That's what I believe. And we'll see what happens. Corey, to what you said, I 100% agree. We need that. Where we are in the roadmap right now is the contracts for Tetra are not even done. They're barely even started. I have the locational stuff into smart contracts, but most of it, the rest of the stuff is not done. With CXC, we have the UPS contracts. We have the localized voting system. It's not as complex as Tetra, but it's the simple thing. So I hope to get to the 100 monkeys with that and just continually keep learning, right? Mm-hmm. So what I want to do when we do launch Tetra is, number one, I'm going to take a lot of what I'm learning right now with X Party, with these liquidity pools. And, I could probably try to pick people's brains and learn about it, but sometimes I just like to learn it myself. So I'm
very often it's better to do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just do it. So I'm just
fuck
doing
around and find out, as it were.
Yes.
take that and use that as the financial way to sort of like just get liquidity, get people to know about the name of the project. Then take the competition aspect and figure out like, okay, what was the most successful aspects about the competition on CXC? And then somehow bring it into an ambassador program where we have people that are representing their area, they're incentivized, they're actually competing just to be the representative. And then once they are, they have these powers, they have these opportunities to grow their network. Now, I will say that it does work better if you have the 100 people in the same jurisdiction, but the charts are like Russian dolls, where all of the state charts add up to the national charts, and all of that adds up to the global charts. So even if it's harder to get 100 people in one area or one town, there's still the hope that these sort of larger jurisdictions can have an interesting enough competition that eventually it takes footholds in certain environments. I would love to have the 100-person test. I guess in my mind, like I'm too much of a planner. So if I can't see a direct route to do it, it just kind of gets pushed to the side, and I just don't know like how to get 100 people. Like I should like, but so that seems hard to me versus I can see the path to, okay, creating a really good referral system. Yeah. But I think that you're 100% right. We need that pain point. We need to prove that pain point. We need to get people for a set period of time, be that a month, 3 months, get them to be on the system, get them to be using it, and then like learn, prove there, take a step back, say, okay, what did we learn? What do we need to cut apart because nobody was using it? And then what did we find out people actually want? And then start to launch that other place.
Yeah, that's because I see you working to create a monster, network system where each individual node might not work, right? So like starting at the individual node position and proving it again. You just iterated the entire thing, right? You're going to learn a lot about stuff about that. You're going to learn, what works, what doesn't, like what's going to bring people into the system, what's going to keep them there, why, and if it's valuable, right? And if it can actually solve a problem in an interesting way. Because if that happens, then the way that your brain works for those larger systems will then be able to kick into some really interesting gear, I think, right? Because then you can start playing around with these ideas that are a little bit more abstract or sort of out of the norm. But if you're at scale, then it starts to it'll be systems that you can actually prove. You can make an experiment, see if it actually functions and does what you think it's going to do, and then you can move on, right? But just figuring out how to help a town, I love that idea. Like that, just figuring that out, because if you stay focused on it long enough, you will figure it out.
Yep,
that's cool. All right, well, fucking happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Venus Day.
Holy guacamole, Batman. It was great to have you on, man. And obviously we'll have you back on anytime you have any updates or anything.
Yes. Whenever you have updates, please reach out, and we'll be happy to chat with you again.
100%. Yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Juan and I were talking about, I think we're gonna extend. We didn't quite get 10 memes in the meme contest that we had running this week. Although, as of this morning, we got a couple
of good ones.
There's a couple that got my attention. That there was some time put into them as well, and we'll share those next week. So anyway, I think we're gonna extend it so you can submit memes until next Friday, just because we want a better crop. But because they're starting to get better, right? Towards the end of the week, they started to kind of improve a little bit. But we'd love to at least double the amount that's there. So we're going to leave that open.
Come on, the rewards are very good. It's $100 for the first place, $50 for the second place, and $30 or $25. I don't remember. For I think
it was 30. Yeah,
30. Yeah. So come on,
guys.
I
haven't seen a single meme from TC yet. Like, does TC hate us now? Like, I don't even understand what's happening. Like this whole situation was tailor made for the meme king, and he has done nothing. I mean, he's probably busy. He's seriously making like a solar paneled ultra computer rig in his house. It's like, yeah, it's fine. You're doing something important, but still, I've seen snippets of it. It is fucking rad. But yeah, we'd love to see some more memes. Again, any meme about any one of the tokens that's launched on launch bags will count. You know, all the people that there you go. I had a feeling you might have been busy. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just we've become accustomed to getting the TC giggles, and that's your fault because you're too good at it. So anyway, yeah. So we're gonna extend it for a week. You can check the Twitters and the Telegrams to check out how to take part in those if you want to. Douglas, thank you very much for coming on. For real, like we'll have to set up another time to do an update regardless, because I want to hear about any progress that you make at that local level to see about proving the case, because I think that's going to be it's got potential. Like it really, if it single bit of it can be proven at a small scale, it'd be very interesting to see what it could do at larger scales. And then we'll see you guys Monday, I think.
And Monday, do we have something on Monday?
Do we have something on Monday?
I'm not sure.
I also am not sure. Russell, of course, is coming next week, but he hasn't really told me what day he's coming.
Cool.
So that's not super helpful. I think I'm meeting with. Oh, you know what? I think I'm on Adrian's show Monday before our show.
Oh no, Monday
Is that
before our show. I think we have call with the clans for the tokens.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay, yeah. I knew I was busy. I didn't know why. All right, cool.
Or are you in the show? I don't remember. Yeah.
No, it's right before. I think you're right about that. I think you're right.
And guys, for anyone who wanted an update on our tapper, look at that beauty there.
Hey.
Nice.
I gotta go check that out now. Yeah, it's coming together, man. It's gonna be good. And there's parts of it that are very much unlike anything that I've seen done or attempted in one of these tappers that I think is going to be is pretty spectacular. So many more opportunities for surprise and delight, which is fun.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, man.
So cool.
Yep. Hey, let's do the thing. Let's do this thing. Boink.
Let's do the
triple thumbs up. Meet in the middle.
Oh, now it's where it is. I'm always confused here.
I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Yes.
You nerds never change.
I can't.